drop into the flow.
I'm just gonna keep drinking my coffee.
Keep drinking your coffee. Okay, I have a very special guest today, Leanne McDonald. Leanne is a psychic, a medium, a certified forensic investigator, a paranormal investigator, and an author. And I understand that she has declined interviews for a very long time. So I feel very special today to be the first one, maybe, or one of the special ones that gets to talk to you on the record here. So Leanne, thank you so much for coming to chat with me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for inviting me. I love your personality. I love your podcast. So when you asked me, it just felt natural to say yes. But I'm not a showy person. I'm not one to be on camera or video, but I just love chatting to you. So I just thought this would be a good way to, you know, put it just there's a lot of mystique around what we do, and a lot of people don't talk about it. So I thought, why not? Let's just have a conversation. Let's talk about what I do and let people, have more of an understanding and take away some mystique and maybe some things they think we do that we don't. Just talk about it.
Totally. Totally. There's so much we could talk about. I think
Mhm.
we've been kind of chatting back and forth for the last about 6 months because we've reconnected. We actually met, for everyone listening, we met in 2018, or we were technically in the same 5-day workshop at Journey Within in New
Yep.
Jersey with Tony Stockwell.
Mhm.
And we became Facebook friends after that, but really that's kind of where it ended
Correct.
until the spring. We reconnected over the whole fraudulent physical medium saga that I have
Mhm.
been
Yep.
exposing. And so you were one of the people, one of the many, many people that reached out to support me. So thank you, Leanne. It means so much. And from there, we've kind of developed this long distance friendship and a shared interest in psychic investigations. It's something that
Mhm.
I've been leaning more towards being comfortable talking about. I've always been kind of doing it, but not really advertising it. And when I found out that this is really what you do with your gift, this is where you really put most of your energy as a psychic medium. So
Yes.
really excited to kind of pick your brain, and you've taught me so much
Mhm.
already. So for everyone wondering, who is this amazing forensic medium, Leanne?
I
Tell us
wish my
about.
kids would say that.
Yeah. They will someday. They will someday. Just send them this podcast after. So
Right.
tell us about how you got here to where you are. What is your story of development, and how did you end up as a forensic medium, forensic
Right.
investigator?
It was really, it was all just very indirectly. I didn't set out for this. It's almost like it chose me. Being a psychic, I mean, I've been a psychic and a medium since I was a small child. This is just my way of life. It's how I grew up. And then as I got older, I started to explore it, tried to understand it, learn about it. And then as I got even older, you start to get into those practice circles with other people, before you're even a professional. And it was becoming almost the running line of if there's going to be a spirit come through that's been, murdered or is missing, or it's going to go to Leanne. And it is exactly what started to happen. If it was something horrid or tragic, I always seemed to be the one in the circle that got it. I wasn't seeking it out. It just happened. People in my life I would meet, and they didn't necessarily always know what I did, but somehow the conversations would start off with, I have this sister that's been missing, or, I witnessed this murder. I just always seemed to be in the right place at the right time to be hearing about tragic endings or tragedy not solved. And then it would always pique my curiosity, well, what they were told, was that accurate? Am I seeing something else? You don't always talk about it, but it's playing out in your mind. You might be seeing something a little different to what they're telling you. Um, and then again, you just continue with your practice circles, but then before you know it, you have real people coming to you. Hey, we've heard what you've done. Can you help me? Can you look into this? Or you've got the instructors in the class coming to you saying, hey, I know you're in my class, but I see what's happening with these readings, with these, you know, tragedies. And can you help me? Because I have this in my family and it's never been solved, and you're working on the side just to see what happens with this, and then you present it. Um, Simultaneously, and this wasn't done on purpose. I always had this interest of listening to 911 recordings. It was just my free time, right? I would be online, I would be on websites, and you can just listen to the recordings, the 911 operator answering. You can hear the most true, raw emotion from people in a 911 call. But at the same time, you can hear the most lies in a 911 call, right? So you're hearing the call, and a man's calling in, I've just walked in the house and my wife is dead and I don't know how it happened. And I'm listening to the call thinking, you did it, you're the one that did it. And you're acting like, you have no idea how this happened. And then it becomes this, you're writing notes in the middle of the night, tomorrow morning, go online and find out what happened to that guy and was he guilty and did he indeed kill the wife? And it ended up being a hobby of mine, just listening to these 911 tapes on a loop and looking into cases. What I didn't realize at the time was that's kind of desensitizing me, because you could hear anything and not sit there and sob over it. You would hear the child call in because the mom's not breathing, or the dad call in because he can't find his child, the child's missing. And then as the years go on, you start working on these cases and you realize you have that ability to detach and not get emotionally wrapped up into the case. And you can work on the case without your own emotions getting involved. So, how did I start? I didn't intentionally set out for this. It's almost like it found me. And then my years of interest in certain things laid the groundwork for me to be able to do it correctly, right? And not get wrapped up in emotion, because this is hard. This is hard work. It really is. It's all tragedy. It's all tragic. And when you're meeting with clients, you're getting them at their worst.
Mhm.
Their worst. You're not getting somebody come on, say, I would just like a reading today, and you're getting their dear little grandmother from the other side and talking about baking pies. You are getting the rawest emotion of your client on the other side. And if you can't hold it together as the medium, you're done. You can't do what you need to do. So I
Mhm.
think it's just the way the universe set it in motion for me, but I didn't set out to do this. I'm just happily going along, psychic medium, enjoying the paranormal, just going with the flow, see what happens. And every time I took a turn, this seemed to be what I landed in every single time. Even on paranormal investigations, I was the medium going in. Everyone else was saying, I see this old lady from the 1800s baking in the kitchen. I'm like, oh, somebody was murdered here in the living room. It's just, and I didn't seek it out. It was just like I walked right over it, and next thing I know, I'm engrossed in trying to find out, what happened and the murder and who killed who. But, I don't watch TV. I don't watch crime shows. I don't listen to crime podcasts. So I don't take it to that level. I never have, but in the natural environment, throw it at me and I'm right there. I'm very interested in it. So how did I get started? I guess you could say I just fell into it and it just happened. Yeah.
Amazing. So do you feel then, back to what you were saying about being in a development circle, a circle of mediums practicing on each other, and
Mhm.
all of those types of spirit people or stories kind of going to you? Do you think that there are, mediums that just should do this and shouldn't do this, or do you think that it's like directed by spirit? What do you who do you think is behind it going to you? Again, is it like because you have an interest, because your mind works that way? What do you think it is? Do you think that spirit wants you to do it? Or do you think that you just are fit for it?
I
Someone else?
I think there's a lot of reasons, right? Some people just can't handle what they see because many times because I've done this long enough, and people will talk to me afterwards, because I wouldn't always get the cases or see, I call them cases now, but the readings of the tragedy. There always were at times other mediums would get it, and then they would reach out to me afterwards, like during the reading, the spirit showed me this. It showed me this. It showed me that I felt nauseous. I couldn't relay everything I had seen, or I watched them relay what they had seen. And then I watched the trauma now to the sitter
Mm,
because everything was going to the sitter and it's traumatizing. So I won't say not everybody's cut out for it. I just think that they may be better suited in other areas.
yeah.
This takes a firm stomach, right?
Mm,
A tremendous amount of ethics, not to mention some psychology background. That's my background for college. Talking to people, trauma, understanding how the brain works. And I think if you don't have all of it, you can definitely work on cases. You can definitely help families, but you have to be very, very careful, how far you get into it, because you can cause more harm than good. You really
I
can.
agree. Yeah,
Um,
I
it doesn't
agree.
mean it doesn't mean everybody can't do it in the psychic and mediumship world, but it involves more than just sitting down and connecting with someone's loved one to talk about their life,
Yeah.
and what their loved one sees them doing now in life. It is so much more than that.
Mhm.
Um, and you really need to put it all together to do it professionally because you
Yeah.
can cause harm. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I've
Yep.
experienced that too. Knowing where the line is, right? What to say, what not to say.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be, you can really drudge up a tremendous amount of trauma for somebody.
Yeah.
And you can mislead them. You can say something that isn't accurate, and you have a family. I have watched other mediums give information without really checking themselves. And a family is spending time and resources and money,
Hmm.
right? PIs aren't cheap. Families spend a fortune trying to find loved ones. You could send somebody on a wild goose chase, spend thousands of dollars of the money if you're not 100% in check with what you're doing with the family.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. It really is.
Hmm.
So yet
Let
you put
alone,
me in a reading, where somebody just wants to talk to grandma who comes through. It's great and all, but it's not something where I'm like, oh, I really want to just dive into this. You just
Mhm.
feel that pull to a certain area and you just go with it. And it's okay for these other mediums and psychics to take on the cases if they want to, but just be careful because there's a
Yeah.
lot more than just sitting down, reading some information to somebody and giving it away. You
Yeah.
got to be careful.
Yeah. Especially when someone's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, who would you say, what are most of the cases that you work on? What are people coming to you for? Is it missing persons? Is it unsolved? Is it
It,
everything? What do you?
it could be everything,
Okay.
everything and anything.
Okay.
For I wouldn't even say I have a majority. It could be, you know, murders, missing people, missing children, homicides.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of times it can be a family has had a family member with a car accident, and the police have deemed it an intentional suicide. But the family truly believes, my loved one would never do that. They weren't mentally unstable. They didn't have anything wrong in their life. We do not believe that they intentionally ran this car off the road into the pole. So
Yeah.
it's a closed case. It's a quote closed case, right? But they're hiring the medium to come in to say, can you look at the finite detail of the accident? Not necessarily connecting to my loved one, talking to them, having this conversation. It's zoom in on what happened, zoom in on the car. What was his mental state of mind? What was going on? So
Mhm.
you can get that. You can get missing persons. You can get, a child's, missing in the last half hour or the last 3 days. Um, a murder, no one knows who did it. I'm usually the last person coming in. I'm
Mhm.
not the first person coming in. Why would I be?
Yeah.
That's the job of the police and the detectives and the PIs. They're always going to be first. My job is to come in last. I'm usually picking up some kind of piece that has been dropped, overlooked, or unsolved. That's when I usually will come in. Um, Usually. Not always. There's the exception. At times I come in pretty quick. I'm called in fast. Usually, if somebody knows about me or has a connection or someone will bring up my name, but I will still take a back seat. My job is not to be in front of any professional or
Mhm.
even alongside. My job is to stand back, do what I got to do, bring it forward, present it, and leave. That's it.
Mhm.
My job is not to be a superstar or a hero. We're not necessarily there to solve a case. Maybe we're just there to give a golden nugget somebody missed,
Yeah.
right? Or to give a family peace of mind who already kind of has an answer, but not quite.
Yeah.
So there's not an easy answer to that. There's so many different things that can come at me
Mhm.
on any given day.
And when someone comes to you, what do they give you? What what do you ask for when someone's approaching you to work on a case?
For the most part, I almost really don't want anything at all. A first name. I used to always ask for pictures. I like a photo with the eyes facing forward. I always say the eyes are like the windows to the soul. You can read a lot from that. But over the last couple of years, I have to shift the way I work to go with the times.
Mhm.
It's too easy now for someone to say, well, you put that photo in Google Images, right? And you were able to pull up the missing flyer and you were able to get the information. I don't want that, right? I don't want anyone to say that. So I tend to not even ask for photos anymore unless I absolutely know the person. I already have that trust bond with them, and then I will ask for the photo. But years ago, that was the common thing to ask for.
Mhm.
Give me a picture, give me a first name, the gist of what I'm doing, is it somebody missing? Is it a murder? Especially if it's time of the essence, right?
Mhm.
If a child has gone missing in the last 30 minutes, I don't want to have to be 2 hours on my board, on my work. Give me a little more. Is it a 30-minute radius for me, an hour? Am I overseas? Give me
Yeah.
some more tidbit information so I can go faster in, right? But if
Mhm.
it's not time of the essence, that's really all I need. I need a first name, a little bit about what I'm going after, and a photo if I know that it's not going to come back at me. I've never had it happen, but it is happening to people now.
Okay. Yeah.
However, what's the point anyway? Because most of the information that goes online is not always accurate anyway.
True.
And sometimes the police put things out there on purpose that is incorrect to throw people off. So what would be the point of going online? It would be stupid. But I have to change with the times because of, what Google has done here with the Google images.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's really all I'll ask for. That's it.
Yeah. Same.
And I sometimes want to connect, I'd like to connect with a voice, even if it's a 10-second clip of the person, that if someone has an audio saved, because I can read undertones of a voice. So sometimes a voice
Mhm.
clip is nice to have. Um, it, but I don't always have the luxury of getting a lot of information, especially if it comes via the police. It's
Yeah.
it's minimal, so.
Okay. Okay. And so from there, you've got a name, maybe you have a photo,
Mhm.
and the person is missing. Uh, let's say it's not time of the essence, right? This isn't super recent. There's been a couple months or a year, and
Mhm.
you're working on a missing persons case. what would your process be like? If you were just about to start and sit down, what would you do?
Well, first I would have been reached out by it has to be immediate family for me, right?
Mm,
I'm not, and there's many times you'll be reached out for a case. My friend is missing, my coworker is missing. So first we got to narrow down who's contacting me, right? It has to be an immediate family member. I need permission that way. And you're better off anyway. Because as you go further on into your work, you want that person to be able to answer questions. Are you getting close to what you need to be on? But so first we have to narrow that down. Who am I talking to? Who's reached out to me? And then I'll get the bare minimum information. And then I just go right to work. And it depends where I am. If it's not an immediate thing, I mean, I've worked in my car. I've worked on a grocery store shopping cart before. If it's time of the essence, literally, I have just pushed my shopping cart to the side of the store and boom, we've gone to work right on the shopping cart with the back of my shopping list and a pencil, especially if it's a child. It really doesn't matter where I am because I don't really need tools. They're nice to have, but I don't have to have them. If I'm home, I have this luxury of being in my little office with my big whiteboard and my sticky notes, then that's what I'll do. And I sit down and I do not structure myself whatsoever. I just allow whatever's going to come to me. But I've been doing it so long, I already know what I'm fishing for. So my brain does go into those areas. Who is this person? It's the, who, what, why, where, when. That's
mhm,
kind of what I'm after. I'm trying to get that information. I'm plotting like a detective, but a psychic detective. I'm trying to map out the case. What's going on? Where did they start? Who did they engage with? Who did they interact with? Why were they interacting with them? I'm nosy. That's what I'm doing. I'm being the nosiest person on the planet for this person to find out where they are. But then there could be stop signs along the way. This is why it's so important to really pay attention because I've been reached out to before by husbands. My wife is missing. I don't know where she is. Can you help me? And you start diving into the case to find out you're pretty sure that wife is in a, battered women's shelter and she's escaping him.
mhm.
I have no business telling him where she is or where she's gone. So I have to come back and say, I'm sorry, this is not the case for me.
Mhm.
You do not say, I can see some things that are a little questionable here, and I think I'm just not going to. No, you back out. This
Yeah.
is not the case for me, and you end it, and that is the end of that. So
Mhm.
there's these flags that can go off that you got to be mindful of when you're working on a case. So that could be something that makes me just walk away. But if you and there's a lot of people that go missing just because they simply want to.
Yeah.
They simply want to.
Mhm.
So you're getting into that energy of that person going missing. Do they want to be found? Are
Mm.
they safe? Are they mentally stable? They've done this on their own. They just truly want to get away and be free. I have no business coming in and digging up that person and saying, yeah, your loved one's over here in Utah on a hike. They don't want to be found. Leave them alone, right? So while I'm working on a case, I have to be looking at mental stability. Are they missing because they want to be? Are they a minor? There's so much you have to be looking at on the case. And then if all goes well and you determine that this person's definitely missing, not on their own will, foul play is involved, and then you can keep going and keep going and keep going and then present sometimes, right? Sometimes. Because you as the medium also need to be careful, when you're working on cases, because you can get involved with some pretty bad things. And then you have to determine, do I want to risk me and my family for sake of ending this case, potentially solving this case? Or do I walk away because I'm in a very dangerous situation right now? And
Yeah.
there's many times I will walk away. I'm not the police, I'm not the detective, I'm not the PI. I don't have to do it, right? I can choose to walk away from the case if I think it's too dangerous. So there's a lot going on when you're working on a case and you're putting it together. It isn't just, this is what I was trying to say at the beginning. It isn't just putting some information down and giving it to a family. It's
Yeah.
10,000 things in the air, putting it together, and what do I do with it now?
Yeah. And I've experienced that recently with working on a missing persons case where, it isn't just here's my reading
Mm-hmm.
and I'm passing it to you, here's what I think, because from there, the person is still missing. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have to be able to keep in touch. And, I then it turns into a lot of emails of this makes sense, this makes sense. So I
Mm-hmm.
think you have to be able to devote enough time as well, right? It
Mm-hmm.
isn't just one reading and then carry on. I think it's and also knowing like the impact it's going to have for you, that just because you can receive what you think is the truth or the answers or the location or whatever it is, it doesn't mean it's going to be solved. Like I've had
Mm-hmm.
to make peace with, and I'm sure you have too, cases where there's a block. It's not going to be solved
Mm-hmm.
anytime soon, or ever, right?
And at times, being a psychic medium, we've got that. Well, I believe anybody can have that information if they ask for it. You get to a case and you are getting the A, B, C, D, E, and then all of a sudden you just cannot get any more.
Yeah.
And you've already done your fact checking with the family, and you're already finding out that this beginning is 100% on. Well, why can't I go any further with it? And
Mhm.
then you reach out to the spirit world and say, why? Just why can't I do any more? You're not meant to.
Yeah.
Not every case is meant to be solved. And sometimes if it is, there could be after rumbles from that.
Mhm.
Families can be threatened. A lot of things can occur because I've been in these situations before. And sometimes if something is solved, you've created secondary issues, third issues, fourth issues. Not everything is meant to be solved. Some things just have to be left to be. And you do feel bad for the family because you can see they're suffering. But
Yeah.
you know that if you come in and you start dredging things up, their
Mhm.
kids could be at risk, their sister, their brother, depending on who the players are. And I kind of look at it as a chess game sometimes, the players. Like, is
Yeah.
it worth it for me to say this over here? Because I know I'm going to cause more damage over here.
Yeah.
This is why, like I said, I'm not a cop, detective PI. I have the ability to say, I'm just not going to go any further with this. I
Mhm.
have had a situation. This is what actually led me into, I call it professional training. I've been doing this a long time on my own, working on cases, and I had gotten myself into a predicament and drawing tattoos. And I'm not an artist by any means. My kids will laugh. They'll tell you I'm not an artist. But, when you're drawing such finite detail of a tattoo, and you don't know where your artistry skills are coming from, the spirit world's probably giving it to you at that moment in time. And you're presenting this to a family and the police, and you're asked, how did you get that? Because that's not in the press.
Yeah.
That's not been on TV. That's not been announced. Can you come in and talk more about this? And you think, wait a minute, what's going on now? You immediately go online and you're trying to figure, because this is before the Google images, existed. And I'm trying to scan and find out, what do these tattoos mean? I don't understand. And I have police friends, and I'm like, I'm just going to send it to my friends who aren't on this and find out what's going on. And then I get confirmation of what I'm dealing with these tattoos and the information that I have. That's dangerous, right? Do
Mhm.
I want to go further with that case? No. Have I already put my foot in it with the family and showed the tattoos? They already know now. They know I'm LinkedIn because they know that none of this is on in the press. It's not online. It's not been on the broadcasts. And
Yeah.
then you start getting bombarded. "Well, we know you have this. Give us more. Come in and interview. You've drawn maps, literally leading them to this area. I could have caused harm to a family, to
Mhm.
myself, to a lot of people involved. And I
Yeah.
backed off for a while, a long time. And I thought I need help with that part of it,
Mhm.
not getting into trouble. not getting too far in, right? I need to know more about the really bad out there. And that's what made me seek training that I knew was going to involve PIs, detectives, right? Police, that kind of thing. And then intertwining my own into that. So that's how this came full circle, was because I got myself into a very sticky puddle that I
Yeah.
was not comfortable with. And that's the first time that had ever happened to me.
Mhm.
So don't always present first. You got to think before you're presenting. Here I am thinking these are great artwork. Look at these tattoos, not knowing what I'm getting involved in. And it was a big deal, a really big,
Wow. Wow.
especially when you get a call to the house from a department saying you need to step back because you've gotten in further than you should and you need to step back.
Wow.
I step back.
Yeah. Yeah. Take
Mm-hmm.
it seriously. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a good message for any psychic or medium out there that's thinking about doing more cases or getting into this, that it
Mm-hmm.
isn't just, solving a case and everyone
No,
celebrating and walking away and the bad guy goes to jail.
no.
There are some things you have to be worried about,
Mm-hmm.
and psychics have gone to jail for having too much information.
Mm-hmm.
Watch Psychic Investigators. Watch,
Mhm, right.
it happens. It happens. So you do have to be careful. And
Mhm.
so, do you feel that when you're working on a case, do you feel that there's mediumship and psychic work? Can you tell the difference? Do you often feel a spirit person step forward? Are you talking to the spirit person? How do you pick up information?
Both,
Okay.
both ways. Um, you know, if they're that's another, aspect because a lot of times you're on a missing person case and you'll get the spirit come to you and it's like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm only getting you one way right now," and as a medium, I know that the only way you could be standing in front of me and me having this conversation with you is that your past could be in a coma, right? There's the potential because you can kind of communicate with them in the same way. So you're still trying to feel it out, but you're pretty certain you have them in the spirit world. Um, However, there's some clauses with that because being a psychic medium, your job is not to tell the family your loved one is dead, right? We
Yeah.
can't do that. Only a coroner can do that. The professionals can do that. I've worked with mediums before that I've heard them say, "Well, I know their loved one's dead, and I've told them that, and I'm not going to give up on this case till they're found." You can't say that. You have no business telling a family that they're passed. You can say, "Well, I'm a medium and you know how I work. And I am able to have this conversation at this moment in time. Granted, I cannot completely validate, that this person is passed, but this is how I'm communicating at this moment in time. This is how I'm getting the information. And I have to tell you that's how it's coming in,
Yeah.
and then at other times it's completely psychic. You're trying to immerse yourself into that energy field of the person that's missing, following along in their, it's like, I try to get into the residual energy is what I try to do. Where were they last seen? I tried to immerse myself into that energy and
Mm-hmm.
go with it. If I have where they're last seen, sometimes I don't, I just have the name and the photo of typically what I'll ask for, but I still try to immerse myself in the energy through the person who reached out to me to start with. That's why I usually say family. They have the strongest connection to the person missing. You dive into them and then you kind of take a detour off of them and get into their loved one and you follow that energy field. Sorry, I almost forgot what your question was. I can
Yeah,
just
no, that's great. And so while you're doing that, while you're kind of diving in and exploring what's
yeah,
happening for you, is it images, sounds, impressions on your body? Like for you, what's,
right.
you know,
It can
all of
be
those things?
um It could be all of the above. It
Yeah.
could be all of it, and it changes every time. If let's just say the person's missing, right? well, let's say the person's missing, and let's say that we're pretty certain they're passed because the way they're coming into me. I'm diving into the last part where I try, got to link in somehow, right? I have to get into that residual energy of them. I have to link in. Sometimes I immediately hop in a car with them, and then I'm the passenger in the car, or I'm the driver, depending on where the person was in the car. And I have to sit in the car with them, where are we going? And I have to feel the energy within that car. Who else is in the car? Is the person missing that I'm looking for scared? Are they intentionally in this car because they want to be driving? Are they being misled by the bad person in the car? Do they not really know what's coming at them yet? I have to put myself into them. What are they feeling? What are they sensing? Did they take medication? Did they drink alcohol?
Mhm.
Um, when did they like I am nosy. When I tell you I'm nosy, I am nosy. I will dig around and dig around. So sometimes I'm feeling sensations. I'm feeling medical. I'm feeling what I ate, what I drank. I'm looking for smells. I'm smelling the environment. Am I smelling salt water? Am I near the ocean? Am I smelling the desert? Like every single sense is coming into play. Um, and then if I'm working mediumship, it kind of intertwines. You have to know where you are. You have to be already to that experience level where what's mediumship, what's psychic, and you will cross. You have no choice but to cross. If you're talking to the spirit, you need the information. They can't always give it to you. That's an interesting thing about um, and I've learned through all of these years of doing these cases that if you are getting the spirit come to you and they have been murdered, they have a hard time explaining to you what happened from impact, which is odd from a normal reading, right? If you're in a normal reading and you're talking to grandma, she's like, I had cancer and I passed, and this is how it felt, and my family was around me. They can get very descriptive on every detail. When there's a murder, they usually can only describe to you to the point of the impact. They
Mhm.
struggle to tell you exactly where they are, if they're buried underground, if they're in water. There's this, and it's happened to me for 10 plus years. So now you have no choice but to swing psychic
Yeah.
and now get into their energy field and dig and be the investigator because they can't give it to you. Time and time and time again, that's how it is. And it is so frustrating because it's different from a regular reading. Why
Hmm.
that is, I don't know. And I've been asked this question a million times and by other students. Why is it that they can't? And I don't know. I don't know why they can't.
Yeah.
Is it traumatic? Is it because of trauma? I don't know. Why can't you tell me that you've got dirt above you, you're buried? Why can't you tell me that you're in someone's bedroom of a house? But they can't. They cannot. So you psychically have to go in and do it. So you're going to get it one way or the other, or you're going to try to get it one way or the other, but you're using both modalities and you have to know where it's coming from. Very, very important. You need to know, is it medium? Is it psychic? Because it's very important to put it all together and where it's coming from.
Yeah, I agree. And I've experienced that too, that frustrating point where you feel like, okay, I'm pretty certain the spirit person's coming close, therefore they must be past.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, why would I be perceiving them this way?
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of block, like there is often that block.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it's happened every time for me, but I do think that it's probably us as well, right? Like I don't think it's just that the spirit can't or doesn't want to tell us. Do you think sometimes that it's you blocking kind of your own self out of protection, out of the fear of what could happen if you do see it?
At times, I
Is
believe it's
that
the spirit world getting involved because
yeah.
we're just
Okay.
not to know to keep us
Yeah.
safe, another family safe.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100%, but not all the time.
Yeah.
And that is a very common thing to get to that point, and then you have to swing psychic.
Yeah.
I've noticed it forever and ever. It's just how it is. Or for me personally,
Mhm.
that's what it
Mhm.
is.
The
And I
thing
have,
that I find interesting about that though, I worked on a case. So here's usually if someone's bringing a case to me, they message through my website and they just tell me what I need. And then I ask for what I need, a name and a photo moving forward.
yep.
But about a year ago, I had somebody book a reading who they just booked a mediumship reading and they didn't tell me anything. Then the man was coming through that he was searching for. It was a good friend of his. So I'm describing him, personality, memories, like he's recognizing the spirit communicator, through an evidential reading. And so then I'm starting to become aware, oh, this man is missing this. And I think what's interesting about that is it did feel different than if I had sat down to work on that case,
Hmm.
knowing he was missing. I don't think I would have been able to receive as much detail from him as I did. I don't know, right? You can't
That
compare.
was probably meant to be.
Yeah,
Meant
yeah,
that's the way it was
exactly.
meant to be. I
Yeah,
always believe things are arranged and set up without us knowing exactly what's going on.
yeah,
That was all meant to be the way it was.
yeah,
Not everything is exactly the way, you
mhm,
know, we want it to be all the time.
yeah,
That
yeah.
spirit needed to come through and do it in the manner that it was
I
done.
think
And
so.
you have to trust that they know no harm's going to come from that, right? Which I sense none did. You know,
No, he was
that was
found a few months later, pretty
right.
much where I said he would be. It was just one of those very easy, like, this is going to be solved. It's kind
Yep.
of flowing. I mean, there's still a lot of suspicion around it. There's still so much more that I think could be done with that particular case, but
Hmm.
the police have just kind of called it a suicide, which I know it was not. So there's those
Right.
frustrations, right, that you bump into where we can see so much more and we can pick up on details that often maybe don't make sense to law enforcement or the family. And we sometimes feel like we know the answer, but we can never force it to
Hmm.
be believed or even to be
Hmm.
solved. So yeah, it's not easy, is it? We have to
No.
we have to just do our best and not be
Yeah.
attached
And a lot of
to the
times
outcome.
there's again, this is expensive resources, when you're working on cases. And, I had a case where I was so certain I knew where this person was. And, you just know at times you're like, well, I'm fairly certain, here's this particular case. I knew with every part of me, this and everyone can't be possible. It can't be possible because of this, 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 this. It just can't be possible. And I just continued to stay strong to that and begging, authorities, go back, go back, go back. Well, the resources ran out. You can't just keep sending people out there. And it ended up being just a bystander in the right place at the
Yeah.
right time in the exact spot where I said that they needed to be, but they ran out of resources. They just couldn't go any further. So, you can get them cases where your heart and soul's in it, and you just have to sit back and wait. You have to wait it out and you have to hope that it's going to get solved one way or the other.
Right.
Um, and you always, or for the most part, nobody calls you back, in this line of
Yeah,
work.
you don't get to find out.
If you're looking for someone to call you, if you're looking for a detective to call you, it's not going to happen. So if someone's in it for these accolades or information, you're in the wrong line. Your best bet is to keep your open cases to the side and periodically watch the news or go online. Of course, the information may not be exactly how it is to be true, but at least something was solved in the area it was solved, and you have some answers that way. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's no happy endings to these. You don't get the phone calls and the or any of that. So if you're looking for it,
Oh
you're in the
no.
wrong place, right? Wrong
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's amazing how you can receive pieces that seem to be meaningless. Here's an example. Recently I worked on a case and I'm sure you've experienced a ton of this too, where I was working on a missing person case and I got grocery store. So I just wrote down grocery store and I gave that to the family. And 2 days later, she emailed to say there was a sighting a possible sighting of him at a grocery store. So it's really interesting
Mhm.
how you have to trust even the most seemingly meaningless pieces of information, right?
Because that could be the golden nugget. And that's kind
Exactly.
of what I was explaining in the beginning. Our job isn't to be the professional, police detective. We're not working in that manner. We don't get the file plopped on our desk and we're working from start to finish. Sometimes we're just there to fill in a couple missing pieces
Mhm.
or lead to a direction that nobody looked at yet. Like,
Yeah.
why am I getting this road? Well, that's 3 roads over from where we are. Well, how about we go over here? For some reason I'm getting this road, and maybe everything else matches up to what they were getting. They were just on the wrong street, right?
Yeah.
So you're not there to solve an entire case and put a case together. Sometimes you're there to give a golden nugget or another clue or another way to look at something.
Yeah.
That's really what you're doing.
Or
And
the, the kind of encouragement to keep looking or keep
yes,
focusing in this area. I don't have all the answers, but yes, I do. I'm in agreement with where you're focusing your efforts, right?
yes. And
And
sometimes
again,
that's all it is.
yeah,
Sometimes
exactly.
I give over information and the family will say, well, that's exactly what we've been told.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really all I'm doing is revalidating because they had questions like, is this true? Is this accurate? It doesn't make sense. And then I've come along and said exactly verbatim what happened. And it gives them a little more peace of, okay,
Yeah.
she's now matching what they're telling us. We can relax a little bit. Our minds can be a little more at rest. And sometimes they'll go to another medium, and then, they'll keep trying to get that validation. But sometimes that's all it is giving somebody peace of mind.
Mm.
And that does happen a lot, a lot. There are answers to a case, it's solved, but the family has questions that are looming. So, and you're there to try to fill in some blanks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Speaking of cases, unsolved cases, you and I have worked on a case together.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been given permission to talk about it in general, we don't have to go into all of the details,
Yep.
but I am just absolutely loving having a friend that we can kind of, we've actually worked on two cases technically.
Mm-hmm.
One was one that you were given and one that is one that I was given. And
Yep.
so I'm loving this
I
because
love how we work together. I
yes,
really do. It,
yes,
it's awesome. And
yeah,
necessarily that we're always matching, that isn't always what you're looking for,
no,
in the person coming in on the case. You want them to come in and give some things you haven't thought about and be like, wow, I didn't see that. That plugs into this over here. And I love the way we work together back and forth,
yeah.
back and forth. It's amazing. Yeah.
Me too. Me too. And I've learned so much from you. So thank you. One of the cases that you were given is an open case right now of a missing woman,
Mm-hmm.
Julie Vesigalt.
Mm-hmm.
And you worked on this case. She's been missing since January and the end
Yes.
of January. So still ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to share our story of remember the crazy experience where so let's give people a bit of a background, right? We
Right.
connected after meeting each other at the workshop in 2018, Facebook friends, that's kind of where it stopped until I
Mm-hmm.
started exposing the physical mediumship fraud stuff that I experienced.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of reconnected over this topic of physical mediumship and seances and Lily Dale. And we've had
Right.
so many conversations that
Because
go,
I hear the word fraud and I'm
yeah,
right there. I'm like,
yeah,
what is she talking about?
yeah,
Let me
yeah.
in.
So we kind of knew already where we stood in our beliefs about physical mediumship and what's possible and what is complete nonsense. And so, put that to the side. You sent me a photo of Julie. You told me she was missing, and you told me that you had worked on that case, that you had permission to share and ask people for help.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you tell me? I feel like that's it. I worked on the
Very
case.
minimal.
Yeah, I worked on it. We had like a good 2-hour phone call where we talked about what we had each picked up on.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was it. We were kind of just going to let it go. But during that phone call, you had an impression
Mm-hmm.
that you did not share with me.
Mm-hmm.
A couple days later, I was at the grocery store and in Ontario, Canada. Now, keep in mind, Julie went missing from, where'd she go missing from? I can't remember exactly.
Elk Grove, California. She was
California.
last seen leaving Elk
Yeah.
Grove, California. Yep.
Okay. So, the chances of her being in Ontario, Canada, 20 minutes away from my home are pretty slim.
Mm-hmm.
We know that's not where she is. But I'm at the grocery store and I had this, a woman walked past and I had this instant full body strange reaction. And the first thought that came into my head was, is that Julie?
Mm-hmm.
Which is so insane to me because why would it be Julie? Like, why did my brain go there first? And she looked just like the woman in the photo that
Mm-hmm.
you had sent me. So I wrestled with it for a couple days. I'm like, should I tell Leanne? It sounds kind of weird. Why would I, why? But I couldn't let it go. Why did I think that was Julie when I know it wasn't? And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even go follow the woman to like confirm. I don't know why. It's almost as if she walked past and then vanished. Like I'm imagining her going past the shelf and then like dematerializing. So I
Mm-hmm.
messaged you. And I said the weirdest thing happened at the grocery store. I thought I saw Julie. And then you told me what? Do you remember what
Yep.
you told me?
Oh yeah, because I had when you and I were talking on the phone, you just get these drop-ins of like flashes of like what would you call them? Premonitions or, things that are about to occur. And I had this vision that she's going to come to you, but I didn't necessarily know how it was going to happen. It was a fast flash. And I thought, well, you're working on the case. Maybe she's going to zip in, maybe she is past and she has this ability to do this. But it was so fast. It wasn't enough for me to say, hey, guess what I just seen? It was just let it go, see what it is. Maybe it's just me. And then you messaged and said that happened. But there's been so many crazy things that have happened since I've been working on this case.
Mm-hmm.
Julie has an
And do you
uncanny
remember?
ability to communicate and
Yeah.
do crazy things. Yeah,
Yeah.
from the beginning of all of this.
Yeah.
Right, the plant falling off out of the
Yeah.
for
So
no
we,
reason at all. And it didn't break. I was surprised. Right,
yeah.
we were talking on the phone and this crash occurs from the
Do
bathroom and
you
I
remember what I said? Do you remember when you messaged back because we were doing voice notes on Messenger, right? And
right.
you said that's so crazy because I received this, I picked up that Julie was going to come to you, which again isn't some like we don't talk that way often. That's not something I tell people all the time. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you don't
Mm-mm.
like it's not something you pick up on all the time, right? But for
Right.
you to say so I think you replied back and you said, so she came to you. And I was like, what do you mean? You're like, I knew that was going to happen some way.
Mm-hmm.
So then I voice noted you back and I said, I think this is the real physical mediumship. Like all of the shit that we're seeing in seances,
Exactly.
the performative
Exactly.
stuff. I said, I think this is the real physical mediumship. And I think that perhaps if she is in spirit, that it was she took a normal person in the grocery store and overlaid her energy
Mhm.
because I'm telling you, it looked like her. And we
Mhm.
hear about this all the time, overlays or
Yes.
transfiguration, but it's in daylight, right? So when
Mhm.
I said that to you, I said, I think this is the true physical mediumship. Then you voice
Mhm.
noted me back right away because what happened on your end?
The plant,
The plant.
just like the plant, just and I wasn't even near that bathroom. I hear this crash, and I didn't know what was going on. And there's nobody really around me. And I walked into the bathroom, and my plant that's been in there for years had just fallen off the ledge and gone onto the floor. Now, me being also paranormal investigator, I'm immediately into trying to figure out was there wind? Was anybody in here? I'm doing my own little house investigation at this point, trying to explain it away because I just won't take the first impression and be like, "Oh, it's spirit." But I'm also taking into account that I'm talking to you and we're talking about Julie and I already know some crazy things have been happening since I've been working on this case with Julie. And next thing I know, I have a full paranormal investigation going on in my house. I'm dragging equipment out of my cases. I'm setting it up along my kitchen, trying to communicate. I'm like, if you're there, come talk to me. Of course, nothing. Oh, one of the music boxes went off quickly, but I couldn't recreate it. And if I can't recreate it, I usually won't accept it. I couldn't make it go off again. So we just packed it all up and I put it away. But Julie has been I never met her personally. I mean, I know people very, very close to Julie, and I know from what I'm told, she's an amazing, beautiful soul. And to work on this case and to, we don't know. Is she passed? Is she not passed? There's no answer to this case yet. I only know the work I've done and the communication I have done with her, but we don't know.
Mhm.
But I know that she had an interest in crime podcasts and shows. She would watch them. And there was a point where I felt she was leading me to her. And I had a map and I had written out this, boat launch and right down to the numbers of the boat launch and how you get to the boat launch. And I was so sure that this is where we needed to be. And I'm talking to the PI and the detectives, and they're like, it's impossible. It's impossible. Those boat launches at these concrete barriers up for months and months, way beyond her, going missing. And it's been under construction, and there's no way a car could have gone down there. And I always call this, the baby, because you get so hung up on a case, you want to make sure you're not hanging onto it just because you worked on it so long. You want to keep yourself in check. Like, I could be wrong, go back and check and check and check. You're constantly double checking yourself. I couldn't let go of it. I couldn't let go of it. So we finally got, some action down on this boat launch. So we're told. There's no evidence of it. There was no photos of it produced to us that it actually occurred, but we were told, some divers went in and couldn't find anything. This is in the Sacramento River. And some time went on, and a pretty popular team was reached out to who was known for this type of work. And they went to the exact boat launch. We did not find Julie, but they did find 42 cars and two bodies. So it makes you wonder her ability. We didn't go to her, but she led to other people, right? She led to two other bodies and two families getting help. At the same time, I'm like, God, if you have that ability to maneuver everybody in line perfectly to make this happen right off this boat launch, why can't we get you? Right? Why
Mhm.
can't we find you? Where are you? You
I
have
know.
such clarity to lead to this direction. Why
Mhm.
can't we get you?
Yeah.
And we don't know that answer.
No.
Are we just not to at this time? Will other people be we don't know.
Yeah.
Will other people be at risk if it's exposed? We don't know.
I
But
know.
this particular case, and you've come in on this case, and this is a twister for me. In all my years of doing this, I've never had this happen, where we've gone right to the spot and found people, but not be the person I'm looking for. That to me is amazing. And then to know that she's so interested in crime podcasts and she's so interested in helping others, and she'd be the first one to help. You listen to all because I'm pretty much done with the case. It's not closed, but my work is done on it. So now I will go online because I'm just curious, what's going on? What's the chatter? What's the talk? What are the videos? It's CBS, NBC, it's all over the place. And
Mhm.
you hear her family talking about her and what a helpful person she is, and she'll do anything for you. This doesn't surprise me, but it's a shock to me. I've just never had this happen before. And I truly believe she was behind all of that, having that closure for those two families.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think it speaks to, we don't know, again, the purpose or the meaning or the reason we are giving anyone a reading, even in a normal reading, right? We don't know the
Mhm.
ripple effect of that. And I think with this type of work, when we're asking spirit to direct us, there's probably always a bigger purpose and a higher um objective or like reason, right? There's another reason that you don't always
Mhm.
know about.
Right. Yeah.
And that's pretty extraordinary. 42, did you say? 42 cars and two
42
bodies?
40 or 42 cars
Yeah.
and 2 bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a
And
well
now
done.
and now you see, this is where it gets tricky. We were told that other people had already been there, and done their diving and done their looking, and it was a little suspicious to me. I never got photos. I've had phone calls with the people, stating that it was done. But then these people go in and just like that, ding, 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 minutes in the water, they're pulling it out and pulling it out, car after car after car after car. And I think, how did the first group not get that at least one? If there's 40 sitting there, surely you would have seen one.
Yeah.
So you're up against a lot when you're working on this, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's frustrating because you, as the psychic, are sitting back saying,
Yeah.
something isn't right here. It's not adding up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really tough. It's really tough.
Hmm.
Just imagine law enforcement. I mean, here we
Hmm.
are complaining about not being able to solve something. Just imagine
Right.
law enforcement. And I think again, it's for anyone who's looking to get into this to know we are not number one. Like you said, we
No.
come in last. We
Yep.
do not solve cases.
Mm.
We just maybe give a couple nuggets, a few missing pieces, an area to focus, something like that. But
Mhm.
that's really extraordinary. And I do think that it would be something Julie would do to send you to someone else first. Maybe you
Yes.
need more time. It definitely, I've got a picture of Julie in my office on my office wall beside my desk, and I look at her every day, and I think
Oh, I have chills.
yeah, it's gonna be a little bit more time, right? But we'll see where it goes.
I
Uh,
mean, obviously, everyone is hoping for, an outcome of goodness.
mhm.
We really, everybody, and I'm talking thousands of people
Yeah,
across, the US. There's so many people that just want her back safely.
yeah.
And, there's a part of me that hopes maybe she's going to listen to this podcast. Maybe she is still alive
Mhm.
and she's going to listen. And there's so many people that just want her back, want
Yeah.
her back home.
Or
Doors are
somebody with
open
information.
across this country. Doors are open in homes for her to go to.
Mm,
Um, but I'm
mm.
sure she knows that if she's still with us.
Yeah, yeah. I will share uh Julie's information and a little bit more about the case and hopefully I'll share a picture of her too, so hopefully people
Hmm.
can take a look at that and
Thank
just see if
you.
anything comes to them. You never know, right? You never know.
Exactly. You never know. You
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah.
You don't. It could be anything, anywhere, right? You never know. Like, we didn't know what was going to happen with the Sacramento River.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
never
that's
know.
so crazy.
To
So
watch that
crazy.
live and just see car after car after car. Like, that's crazy. How did the first group of people not see that?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Well, because I think maybe they didn't try. Very
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So Leanne, what would be before we wrap up here, I'm just thinking of our listeners and some might not be mediums at all.
Hmm.
For someone who is a psychic medium and has an interest in working on cases,
Hmm.
what's your best piece of advice to get started or to,
Um,
what do they need to know going in other than everything we've already said?
right. What do they need to know going in? Don't, like, cold call. I call it cold call, right? Don't grab a case off the news, out of the newspaper, local, um, go home, work on it, and then go find the family. Don't do that. Because you never know what you're walking into with a family, and you never know what level of healing they're at, or what level of healing they're not at, or what their mental stability is at. You're walking into their world. Don't do that. You have to wait for it to come to you. But if
Mm.
you want to start working on it, let's just say you don't have the ability to have a case given to you, you can start a practice circle. You can get a couple like-minded friends together. You can have, oh, I told you this, isn't it? What I did way back when I first started, there was me and two other women, and the one lady's husband would go into work and have one of his coworkers pull a case from the internet. And it had to be a case where you really knew the beginning, middle, and the end. Granted, what can go online can be sometimes a little sketchy and not always accurate, but it's the best you can do when you're trying to practice. And that person in the office maintained all the information, but fed the husband a photo and a name. Of course, this was before Google Images, where you could search the photo. And then he would hand it to his wife, and she would bring it into us on a Zoom, and she would put up the photo, put up the bare minimum information her husband gave to her. We would take it and reconvene a week later. And the three of us would get together, put our work together. We made drops and things we got because we didn't like, but we may take something from the other medium and we put it all together as a you don't want to create a story. You never want to create a story because a cop doesn't want a story. They want facts. That's all they want. So you put your facts together, you kind of organize them. Doesn't mean you have them in order correctly, but you kind of organize them in categories. You may go back and work another week. You may now want to take that, board that the three of you put together for, however many you have in your group, and you work on it again. You come back a week later. But now her husband's in there. And now he's ready to come on the Zoom and say, right, this is what the case is about. This is what happened. And then you all get to sit there and listen. And now you're looking at your notes. And that's where you really put yourself in check. Like, good, got that, got that. Wow, that was awful. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
It doesn't always mean you're wrong, though. It could just be something that I always say, you're getting something for a reason. It doesn't always mean it pertains to the case. I don't like to throw things away, but I may lower them, just not relevant to the case, and it really keeps you in check. And then we do it again, before he leaves, he's throwing us another case, and you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And eventually you'll see a pattern, and you're going to know, am I supposed to be doing this? Am I not supposed to be doing this? And then the universe just sees it to be right. If you're really meant to be in this, you're going to be in the right place at the right time. People are going to come to you, or you're going to be in your readings and you're going to start getting these nitty-gritty readings. And it's just gonna start flowing if you're meant to be in that direction. I always say if you're working too hard and you're searching too hard, the universe is trying to say, this isn't where you're meant to be. You're meant to be over here. You can still have it as a hobby. You can still have it as something to do, but it may not be the avenue that is going to be your career to do it professionally.
Yeah.
But practice groups, that's the way to start out, and have somebody having that double blind is even better, right?
Mhm.
Because if you have someone in the group that knows all the information of the case, if you're especially first starting out, you run the risk as the psychic reading the person giving you the case. So you're
Yeah.
reading everything they already know to be true. So having that double blind of somebody else bringing it in that doesn't know anything themselves, you don't have any information whatsoever. So it's more, you can trust your information more when you're giving it over.
Yeah.
And it worked out perfect. We really didn't know what we were doing in the beginning. We didn't know the importantness of that. We
Mhm.
just were like, well, make sure your husband doesn't know anything either, right? We didn't
Yeah.
realize that it was actually so important what we were doing during those practices. And those women were great too. I'm still friends with them, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I started. I'm sure there's other ways you can do it. Obviously you can get cases online, or sorry, not online. You can, if you see a news report, and you're getting hits from a news report, you can write that down. It doesn't mean you're going to chase after anybody. You're not calling the police. You're not calling the family,
Yeah.
and then you just leave it to the side, and then you follow it through the press. And then you can double check yourself, like, oh, look, I was pretty good here. I wasn't so good over here, and it's check and balances. In the beginning, you're gonna have hits, you're gonna have misses,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen, but you'll know if it's meant to be professionally or just on the side for fun. Because
Mhm.
honestly, it is so rough, and it is It is not easy gig. And if you're not enjoying the search, the research, the detail, you're not gonna do well at it. You know, you have to have that curiosity and that nosiness to dig in, not be afraid, and have a really strong stomach.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
important. That's very
I
important.
know. I know. I
Yeah.
get that. And I think I really would like to echo what you said about not cold calling, or, I even have people approach me to work on a case, and I made that mistake years ago. Someone approached me, asked me to work on a missing little girl. I think the case was I think it was from New Brunswick. So a couple provinces over from me. So I don't know anything about the case. I worked on it, and then I gave her the information, and she replied and said, "Oh, that's exactly where everyone says she is." All the local people say that. And then I realized that this was just a local curious woman.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
wasn't family, it wasn't law enforcement. Obviously, it wasn't law enforcement, but I think I learned a big lesson that, like, I'm just now being a curious, nosy psychic. Like,
Hmm.
um it wasn't a good use of my time either. And now I'm just perpetuating, the myth.
And right.
So
And if you take it on too quick and not paying
yeah,
attention, the person reaching out for the information could be the person actually responsible
I
for the case.
I know.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's gotta be, I had a case given to me, and that's not the ending of it, but I was getting this case, and it ended up being a massive national case. And first I was getting it from this person's coworker reaching out to me and the person's friend reaching out to me. And they were coming in from all over the country. Can you work on this? Can you work on this? And I just kept declining and declining and declining. And then indirectly, a friend of mine worked with the father. And the case was ongoing, and she said, "Hey, I know somebody, that does this. You may be interested in reaching out." And they did. They had no idea that people throughout the country had been reaching out to me, and I've declined this case probably 10 times to this point. If you're meant to work on something, it's going to come to you the way, in the proper way it's meant to be. And I'm telling you, the spirit world and the universe set it into motion the way it's supposed to be. That father had no idea that I had declined that case up to 10 times. Not a clue. But I
Yeah.
finally, the case was meant to be, the case did get solved, and I landed exactly where I needed to be with the family, directly with the family. Had I took it on the previous 10 times with the other people, probably actually wouldn't have gone anywhere. You
Yeah.
know, is the father really going to listen to the coworker that said I called a medium and I got this information? No, not really. It needed to be that way. And if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen.
Yeah. That happened to me recently. Someone asked me to work on a case, and I said, "Okay, having learned that lesson, how
Yep.
are you connected?" "Oh,
Right.
just local family." And I said, "Okay, I'm more than happy to help, but if you have a connection to the parents of this missing person, have them reach out to me. I need permission." And I haven't heard
Right.
anything. And so that tells
Right.
me, right, that had I worked on the case, given her a reading or my information, she might have just out of nowhere passed that on to the family. Just imagine
Mm-hmm.
how damaging that could be, right?
Right. Because you have
So,
no idea the status of the family at that current
yeah,
time. And, or a lot of times when a child goes missing, the family does have a lot of information, and the police are telling them not to speak.
yeah,
Because if they speak, they could ruin a case, right?
yeah,
Many times
yes,
the police are already on it. They already know exactly where they need to be. They're waiting for the right time to protect the child,
yeah,
right? They don't want the bad person taking action fast on that child because they think someone's coming down the driveway to arrest them. It's all very hush hush. I mean,
yeah,
I have worked on cases where, in the end you discover the family knew. They were certain all along because the police said the child is right here.
yeah,
Don't say anything. You're going to ruin the case. And then
yeah,
you watch the press, and something completely different is released out to the press because the police are trying to throw it all off. They don't want the bad person to know that, and they know exactly where they have to be. So you could essentially damage a case. So you have to wait. I truly believe The universe and spirit organizes all of it. And if you're meant to have something, it's going to come to you. This is why I don't promote. It's why I don't throw myself out there. I don't advertise. If it's going to come to me, it's going to come to me.
Mhm. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how we're both so in alignment with that. That's exactly how I operate too, and I always have. And, I've only recently been saying, hey, guess what? I do this because
Mm-hmm.
I want to do more of it, but I'm still not taking everything that comes in unless
Right.
it's in that.
Well, you're putting it out there. You're putting it out there. And by putting it out there, you're not shoving it into people,
Yeah.
but you're expressing it, and the universe is hearing that, and that it just all comes cycle, it'll be what it's meant to be. But
Yeah.
it's definitely an interesting, like I said, I didn't set out for this. It kind of found me, but I'm happy about it because I really enjoy it. And now I know why it found me, because this is where I was meant to be. I'm not, you asked me to go do a demonstration or a platform. It's not for me. I'll give you 10,342 reasons why I can't do it. It's just not, as much as I'll daydream about it. I'm like, oh, that would be great with a crowd behind me. No, it's not for me. I'm much better in my little hole with my maps and my my sticky notes, and working with a case. That's exactly where I fit comfortably, and I'm happy with that. So yeah.
Well, you're doing amazing. You really, anyone, if you need help with something, I recommend Leanne 100%. You are yeah, you're so good.
Awesome.
On
Thank you.
point.
I
Okay,
appreciate it.
Leanne.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you
This
so much.
was this was awesome. Thank you for
Yeah.
this.
Okay. I will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye. There you go, guys. I will put the links to Leanne's website in the show notes, but it's leannemcdonald.com, LeanneMcDonald.com. Leanne does not have a social media presence. She keeps this pretty low key, so that's the best way to reach her, through her website. So, the missing person that Leanne and I were speaking about is Julie Margaret Vezigo. She has been missing since January 23rd, 2024, and we are hoping for her safe return. We're praying for her, and I will put the links in the show notes in case anyone is interested in researching more about her case. You never know who could listen to this podcast. Somebody could have information, and so of course we'd like to include that here in hopes that we can help in some way. All right, guys, that's it for now. Bye.